Hello and welcome to Makers.dev episode number 43, coming to you live from Croatia. If you're watching this on video, I'm pivoting my monitor so you can see the ridiculous view outside. Chris, dobar dan, which I think is how you say good afternoon in Croatian, but I'm not confident.
Yeah. Good morning from the States. I almost booked a ticket, and then I saw the stuff on Twitter, and I was like, I should have booked a ticket. But hopefully you had a good time.
Well, you got the MicroConf that I wanted to go to. You got one that was probably a 4-hour drive from where I live in Austin. So I think we're both envious of the MicroConf the other person got to go to. How was MicroConf Austin local? I have yet to go to one of these local events. For background, this I think is Rob's take on replacing the starter edition of MicroConf. Instead of having a huge conference in one central location, they're looking at having smaller ones that are more local, and so that sort of fits better with the MicroConf starter ethos. Makes it easier for people to go to, and it's a shorter conference, and the idea is you don't have to drive as much. I'm so curious what your experience of that was.
Yeah, it was super interesting, and yeah, it's supposed to be kind of a replacement for starter. Although it was very interesting. Probably more than half the people had already started and already had significant businesses, I would say. The big difference, though, is something like 80% of the people hadn't been to a MicroConf before, like 80 or 90%. So it was like mostly people new to the conference, had listened to Startups for the Rest of Us or something like that, but new to a conference, but already had businesses. So, and Rob even said something about that. So Austin was the last of the 3 that they did. And so Rob basically said, it's kind of a different turnout than they expected, in a good way. But so they're trying to get feedback and try to figure out what to do for next time. Is it actually a good replacement for starter or not? But yeah, it was really neat. It was probably about 50 people, so it was pretty small, but had a lot of great conversations, as with all MicroConfs. It was only 1 day, not 2 days. And it was generally very, very, it still gave me the same vibe as a MicroConf, so that was good.
50 people is definitely small for the main conference in Vegas. I think that's close to 1,000 people. MicroConf Europe, which I have some hot takes from, I'd love to go through, I think was only 80 people. I think they said it was the smallest big official MicroConf that has ever happened, even smaller than the very first one. Very interesting, very much more intimate. I don't know. I'm trying to tease apart what the vibe difference was between this and other MicroConfs I've been to, but it was like it was more chill or more relaxed, or some. I don't know if this was just the way that I was coming to the conference, that I felt more chill and maybe less hungry and more comfortable and confident in what I'm doing, or if it was the setting that talking about your business problems and the setting of these beautiful cliffs where the stone for the White House was quarried, and there's just beautiful fish and mussels jumping out of the water and directly onto your plate at a restaurant, or these just gorgeous sunsets, or if this is more of a European ethos that in the States people are put work as a much higher priority and sort of value themselves holistically much more of work. But there was a very different vibe. I'm still not sure where it came from, and I'm still not quite sure where to attribute what the difference in vibe was. And it may have merely been the difference in the number of people. What did you notice anything for the size of the conference? It sounds like the attendees were a rough sample of the sort of people that would usually go to Vegas. Did you feel like there was a different vibe?
It did feel smaller. I felt like I talked to almost everybody, so that was kind of neat. I think since it was only 1 day, it felt like a quarter chunk of the main auditorium in Vegas. So it was it didn't feel that much different because it was shorter, I think. So in terms of talking to people and stuff, it felt very similar. It was just super nice to get around people again, though. It does so much for your mental health to feel normal again. It was
consistently something that I've felt, and something that I keep hearing from people in this business, is that bootstrapping is great. Having your own business is great. You can set your own schedule. You can just make absurd amounts of money without having to report to anyone. It can be very low stress depending on what you choose to make it. The consistent downside is this feeling of isolation, that if you're running a business by yourself, you don't have a boss to complain to, and you don't have a team to go through difficult situations with. So I really feel like this is the community of people who get it, who understand, like, these are the people who you can complain about minor inconveniences to when you're making, $50,000 a month, whereas anyone else you go to off the street would be like, you're making how much? And you're complaining that a customer was mean to you over email? Like, who cares? I would trade anything to be in your position. But like, no, there are hardships in anything that you're doing and struggles, and part of being human, I think, is continuing to try to deal with those. So yeah, it's nice to be around those people. I would love your hot takes. Consistently, I think both of us leave MicroConf with some sort of a big takeaway. I have one that I'd love to dive into, but I'm very curious about yours first. What was the takeaway that you left? Did you feel renewed motivation to start SEO or something? What was your takeaway?
Yeah, so I wrote down some, and I wrote down a bunch of notes, but yeah, some of the big ones are, well, the main takeaway is, like, I remembered why I got into products, and like, I still want to keep doing my master's, but I also want to refocus. Like, COVID basically totally upended what I was focused on, and so I want to get back to focusing on products. That is what feels good to me. Some of the takeaways I have were, you have to focus because it takes a long time. That was said more than once. Like, and so, like, me doing 30 different projects probably isn't, healthy or long-term sustainable. Yeah. Then build less and sell more was something repeated. And, that is something that we have to be reminded of as developers. And then from a customer standpoint, it was map your ideal customer journey and then find your gaps. And that's how you can, sort of close your funnel. So find your gaps. And yeah, so those were some of the big takeaways I had. I can keep going, but yeah, I think generally I want to get back to working on products because that's, what feels good. So yeah.
I'd love to dig into each of those. What inspired you to be refocusing on products? What's the feeling behind that?
That's a good question. It's like I don't want a full-time job, and so I need money coming in that isn't a full-time job, and and so then the things that I feel when working on products that's the way I want to feel, and so yeah, that's what I want to do.
Cool. As a sounds like income is the primary motivation, that this is an enjoyable way of making money that's not having a full-time job. Is that accurate?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's fair. You can make stupid amounts of money doing this. The downside is, like you said, you have to focus. And, like, my God, I feel like this is a perpetual struggle of mine. This is, I'm going to come back to points that I want to dig more in, but focusing was also something that came up for me at MicroConf Europe. There was the very last keynote talk of the conference just rattled me. It was by the founder of V.io, Saba, who gave this presentation talking about how he started off in, like, a regular job and was doing all sorts of creative projects and music and was very fragmented and just working on all kinds of different things and, like, doing stuff in the crypto space. And, like, it sounded like he was describing me of what I've been doing for the last 7-ish years. And then he was like, I decided one day to just focus and double down on this one thing because it seemed to be working. It seemed to be getting some traction. And then went on to describe this ridiculous trajectory of raising revenue from nothing to, no joke, $6 million of ARR in 2 years. And I'm just looking at this graph, thinking, like, what am I doing? Like, what have I been doing for the last 2 years? And I think some of that is that he got picked up in a market that is trending upward. This trend of being able to edit video with a web app, but a big part of it was like he just chose to focus on one project and then one aspect of that project, which is just growth. He was just like, every day I woke up and thought, what's the thing that I can do to grow this thing? And I had a conversation with him afterwards where someone was suggesting to him like a feature he could add, and he was like, if my team gets together and decides that would grow the project, like, yeah, I would bang that out in a week, and I don't see a way that would grow the product, so no, I'm not going to do it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, how clear a way to make decisions. And clearly it's working. Clearly the strategy of only focusing on growth, like, it's leading to grow the product incredibly quickly. The downside of that, though, is like, I really enjoy creative freedom, and I think you do too. Like, being able to play with GPT-3 and being able to play with how to do GPU programming. And I could sort of make the argument that getting a master's is kind of a distraction from product. I can see how you could justify swinging that back in, but it's really fun. I like learning things. I like doing a bunch of different things. It feels much more balanced. How have you conceptualized that? Because I have also felt this renewed pressure to be focusing on fewer things, and I think objectively I would be much more financially successful. And every time consistently when I try to do this, I rebel against myself after a couple of weeks. What's your higher level perspective on how you're seeing this?
Yeah, so my current thought is like, I have several things which could be products, several things which are making money. And I think it's, for me anyway, I think it's sort of unhealthy to have a lot of things that can be making money because I don't know what to focus on. And so I jump between them, and then I just lose all. Like, I can't push any of them forward. With the masters, it is very specifically not to make money. It is just to learn. And it's also, the schedule is set. And so what I'm seeing now is like, I can have the masters and something to make money running side by side. At least I feel like it, check back in several months, but I feel like I can, and I can compartmentalize those. So I'll be able to like separate my time, equally between them, or evenly at least. So basically I have my product focus, whatever I figure that out to be, and then my, learning focus, which is the masters right now. So that's kind of how I'm conceptualizing it. And I think I came to the same conclusion that you did, which is like, I'm just doing whatever I feel like, which is sort of working, right? But it's not really getting me, at least monetarily, where I want to be. Like, I'm covering expenses, sort of, and if I had some consulting in there as well, but covering expenses is not why I got into the game. So and so I'm rethinking about how I think about products, how I think about my time, because of the learning and the, like separating learning from one thing that makes money. And so I'm still wrapping my head around what that looks like, but that's how I'm thinking about it.
Once again, we've synced up in like our motivation of what we're thinking about in motivation. We started this podcast, I remember, as sort of being each other's boss and holding each other accountable. And the way that I see this going, like, yes, I feel this motivation for refocusing on products, but I can see myself just getting distracted in another 2 weeks and forgetting that this is the thing that was important. What are we going to do about that? How could you solve this problem for me? And then I'll use the same tactic for you. So I think what I would like is to be consistently. I don't want it to be like, I don't want to say something outrageous like, I want to spend 8 hours a day on focusing only on growth for Fileinbox. But I do want to be more consistent and more scheduled in the work that I'm putting forward. And like, I have a lot of plans of things that I can do, and I got a lot more strategies from this MicroConf. What would you recommend for me? How can you help me to stick to a schedule that's going to be consistently pushing this forward, that is not something that I'll be rebelling against and then just become fragmented in another 2 weeks and want to work on a dozen different things again?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question because I have done this kind of thing in the past too, and I'm like, I'm going to focus, and then 2 weeks later, I'm not focused.
Yep.
And not only that, I rebel against whatever structure I put in place in order to focus. I don't have a good answer other than like we can hold each other accountable. Like up until now, at the very beginning, I think we started by sort of trying to hold each other accountable a little, and it's sort of fallen into just not doing that. So we could do more of that. I could berate you if you don't spend a certain amount of time or energy or something on it. I don't know if that would work super well either.
I don't think I
think
respond very
the
well
thing
to
that focused me
being
most
berated.
of all is yeah, exactly. The thing I would say focuses me more than anything is seeing results, and so perhaps something like don't focus on I don't know. I have to think about this, but maybe focus on writing down and recording results that you see from actions that you take. So just being more intentional about making sure you understand that yes, spending 4 hours this day was a little painful, but that got me 2 new customers, and so it was totally worth it. And maybe doing more postmortems that are like results oriented. That might be helpful. There's a lot of research about how to motivate yourself and how to focus. A lot of it doesn't work for me, and so I don't have a good answer. Yeah.
I like the idea of results-oriented postmortems. I feel like I've gotten really discouraged in the past of I would try a project and I would expand my comfort zone a little bit and spend a little bit more money than I was comfortable with, doing something like audience ops, hiring them to write articles that would hopefully improve SEO. And consistently what happens is I get excited about this project, I hear about it from MicroConf or something else, and then I try it, and then I sort of forget about it, and then I look back and think, oh, this is just a waste of time and or money. I'm going to stop doing this. And then I feel dejected and like the whole thing was a waste of time. So I like the idea of a postmortem because like at the very least, the thing that I'll have at the end of this project is, oh, here's, my hypothesis was if I have more articles, then I'll get more SEO rating and like this is what success would look like. And if I succeed, then I'll double down on this and do more of it. So at the very least, I'm getting that report of like, here's the experiment, here's what I tried, here's what I thought would happen, here's what actually happened. I'm not going to do it again. And now I'll have a record of, look, I tried these 12 different things this last year and they didn't work for this reason. And then that's the thing that I can go back and revisit of like, oh, actually, it didn't work because, reading back in this report, I didn't follow the actual procedure of what people were recommending I do with SEO. Yeah, I like that. I think my first project in that is going to be for Fileinbox making an app for an app store app, like for something like the Squarespace app store or like the WordPress app store, because my hypothesis is that's another form of SEO, that people are searching for apps that do a specific thing in those app stores, and for very low effort, and I'll be able to track in this postmortem exactly how much time I spend on it. I'm thinking it won't take more than, 5 hours, that I'll be able to get a app in an app store that people can search for, that's showing up in those results, and then that's going to be a source of traffic that's like, I don't know what success would be. I don't know if I got one new customer a week from that, I feel like that would be a worthwhile project for a 5-hour investment. What are your thoughts on that? Oh gosh, there's a bee. Okay, it's gone.
Oh no. Yeah, I think that's great. So one of the takeaways that I didn't mention was from at MicroConf Austin was Dr. Sherry Walling, and she basically said be intentional. Like that was the key. And so yes, I think intentionally before you start a project, what are you going to do? By when? What does success look like? What does failure look like? And then on that date, set yourself like a calendar reminder. On that date, you fill in the things. Did I do it? What happened? Was it successful? Was it failure? Based on my, previous definitions of success and failure, because they will change throughout the project. And I think that's what I do. Like, I can rationalize my decisions and stuff like that. But if I look back, it's like 2 weeks ago, I said it'd be successful if it did this. Did it do that or not? I said it'd be a failure if it did this. Did it do that or not? And then next time I can use the things I learned to change my definitions of success and failure. But yeah, I think that's great. And that doesn't, like, particularly for you and me, that doesn't like specify that we have to spend a certain number of hours or anything like that. It's just, I said I was going to do this thing by the state. Did I do it? What happened?
Yep. This feels very tractable, and I'm also sort of getting excited about the format of what these postmortems could look like. I'm imagining a template that then goes on a blog, and like a separate product blog section of Fileinbox or something, and then I can tweet those out and be like, my experiment for the last 2 weeks was this, and here's what I tried, and here's what the result was, and then that's perfect then to send out to my advisor list and be like, this is the last experiment that I did, and it didn't work because of this, and here's my upcoming one. Because that's the sort of thing that I can imagine people responding to and being like, oh, this didn't work because you're dumb. You try to do it this way, and actually you missed the most important part. So okay, I'll redo that experiment in the next block. I'm really liking this. This feels like it closes a loop that I've been struggling with. Okay, cool. So flipping that around, what is the first experiment that you'd like to run in growing products? Are we focused on MeetingPlace? What is the growth that you'd like to see?
Yeah, so good question. I either am going to focus on double down, focus on MeetingPlace, or do something new, and that's my big choice. I have what I think is a fairly good idea about something new. But I don't know if I just like it because it's brand new and I'm thinking about it, right now, or if it's actually a good idea. So we could, let's see, how much time do we have? I could get your hot take if you want on a new idea, and then compare that to MeetingPlace. If you,
I would love to give a hot take. I'm in the mood for a hot take. Let's go.
All right. So first, I'll talk just a second about MeetingPlace and why it may not be a great double down option, which is it is a very difficult. We've talked about this before, but I've just been reaffirmed. It's very difficult to grow, especially as a one-person company. It requires a lot more customers than most B2B SaaSes, and so a lot of my difficulties are it's very tricky to grow as a one-person company. Even if I up the price and compare it to something like Circle, still hard to grow as a one-person company. So. And that's most of my ideas fall into that bucket in some way. So I went all the way over to the B2B side. And at MicroConf Austin, one of the things that I was thinking about a lot was this. So I talked to Jesse Anderson again, remember, about like a writing kind of buddy, right? An AI-powered writing buddy. But the thing that kept coming up when I talked to people about it was like, writers don't have a lot of money, and there's not that many of them. And I think that's true. But who does have money and who there's a ton of? Any company with a blog, right? So the idea would be something like an AI-powered, not a writer for like blogs, marketing stuff, but a little like what you were talking about actually, which is I can analyze your blog for keywords based on what I know about the keyword of your topic, and then suggest titles for blog posts, titles with either abstracts or bullets that you should write in order to cover the gaps in your SEO, right? So the idea is, you have this tool, it tells you what you should write, and then you have to go write it. Turns out AI is not great at writing, especially stuff like blog posts right now. But so that's the kernel of the idea. There are lots of tendrils that come off of that I could do. Like, for example, then after that, I could suggest tweets that you should tweet out for your blog post to promote it, or Instagram or Facebook messages. I could suggest, so if we think about the Jordan gal, like free content and drive ads to it, you should write these 5 blog posts and you should drive these ads to it on this schedule. So that's something I could do. So there are a lot of little things I could do, but the general idea is an AI-backed content suggestion tool, I guess. What's your hot take?
That would be so much fun to make, and that's so in line with like your interests in the moment. I'm gonna come back to that for a second because I want to push back on something you said for MeetingPlace. You said it's difficult to grow as a one-person company, and that it's a lot more work than most B2B SaaSes. What would that work look like? So if you applied to YC and got funding, and they were like, here's $1 million that you can spend to grow this. You have the resources to be able to do this now. What might that work look like that you can't do right now?
Yeah. So the problem with MeetingPlace is a couple fold. One is the way I have it set up now, it is low, that people expect to pay a low amount per group per month. And for that, because it's anchored by meetups price. And for that low price, like a successful group might have 1,000 or 2,000 people in it, which is 1,000 or 2,000 people hitting your support. Like I have free groups where, nearly every one of the 50 people has asked me for a password reset, even though there's a button right there to do password reset. So stuff like that. So high support, right, for a low monthly fee. I could switch to something like Circle. So Circle.so, I think, or Circle.co is probably the best iteration of like a more community focused type of thing that I know of. You have similar problem there. Successful groups are very large, since you have a large support load, although they have a much higher price point, which is nice. But the downside is like Circle's right there, and Circle's probably the product I would build. And they have a big team, right? And they're going to be able to move faster than me, at least for a while. So like I have no thesis about why whatever I build would be better than Circle. So those are the things that I'm feeling right now about MeetingPlace.
Cool. I'm gonna keep pushing on this for a little bit because I want to. If we are moving away from MeetingPlace, I want to be like definitive. We've exhausted everything to try with this. You said that what I'm hearing is that the main thing that you feel like you can't do right now is that you don't have the resources to be offering support, that it's a too high of a support load to deal with as a single person, and that you're getting all these emails of password resets when the password reset button is right there. That's what I'm hearing is the core thing that you don't feel like you can do on your own. Is that right?
So support, yes, but not just that. It's the low price point with there's no expansion revenue opportunities. There's no, there is super low churn, which is nice. Like once groups are on there, they almost don't churn at all, because you have your entire group going to that page, right? So that's nice. But like I would need so many groups, especially at the price point it is now. I would need like 800 groups or something, which is paying groups, which is crazy. Like that's super high for, there's a reason that B2B SaaS is a lot easier to get to high numbers quickly, because the price points are just higher.
Okay. So in addition to the high support, there's no expansion revenue. You feel like there's a very low price and there's not an opportunity to charge the people more. And because of that low price, it needs to be very big. You need to have 800 paying groups to make this a viable product. It sounds like those are the three reasons that you feel like this is not a company that you can grow on your own. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, and it's not that I couldn't do it. I'm sure I could do it. It will just be slower than any B2B SaaS that I come up with.
Okay.
It does have some nice things. I mean, the reason I started it is, like it does have nice things about it. But yeah, those seem like very limiting growth factors. Yeah.
I want to address those one at a time. The high support load. This is something that I've been trying to push myself to do that I still haven't done. There's a site called Shepard where you can just develop SOPs for every type of support email that you get, and you hire someone in the Philippines to field they are the first wave defense against any support ticket. And so anytime anyone asks a question that's ever been asked before, they have an SOP of like, oh, this is a password reset. Let me copy the password reset template and paste it in. And I'm a human, so I can, be a little bit personal. And if there's a weird situation in this, I can deal with that. So you're only seeing novel cases. You are only seeing things that make it past that first line of defense. And that's surprisingly affordable to hire a person for something like 20 or 30 hours a week, I think is $500 US. Like, it's stupid. It doesn't make sense that you can hire a human person for that little. And then in the Philippines, the working hours overlap pretty well. And you know, they're getting a much better experience. This is something that I need to do for Fileinbox that I haven't done yet, that I think is a solution to that first problem. How does that feel?
So, yeah, that feels good, except the low price point means that I would need, I mean, my price point is like $10, $15 per group per month. So, and I'm only, you know, I'm making what, $200 or $300 a month right now. So I would need to 10x my business before I could even pay for the cost of support Shepard. So that doesn't feel good at all, right?
Yeah, that does feel gross. You could look at that as a business investment if you wanted to do that now. Like, if I was approaching this with the mindset of, you know, Jordan Gall, the way Jordan Gall would approach this business, or the way that Saba would approach this business is like, oh, this is a problem. The sports do I. Great. Oh man, one of the things in Saba's talks was he, in trying to start Veed, he consolidated all of his assets to be able to pay developers. Like, he sold whatever stocks he had, and he sold Bitcoin in 2014, which he just looked so torn up about, because if he just held on to that, like, that would have been worth so much more. But he just went all in. He was like, yeah, this is the direction I want to go, and, you know, was able to focus to that. So yes, I agree that the low price per user, the would that be ARPU, average revenue? Yeah, ARPU is low. But I think that's a separate issue from support. I think support is like, you don't want to be spending your time on support. I agree with you. I think Jordan Gall would agree with you. I think Saba would agree with you. I think the way to solve that is make SOPs, hire a person for $400 a month, look at that as a business investment, and now you're not. You can move on to other things. You can move on to where your time is more valuable. So I'd like to tack on the next thing, which is the low price point, needing 800 paying groups. This feels like the core problem, and I see this sort of wrapped up in that you feel like you don't really have a competitive advantage with Circle. I feel like if you could figure out this one point, I feel like if you could identify who the person is who needs something slightly different from Circle, who's willing to pay more, that would solve this viability as a business. And I don't know enough about your audience to know who that is, but it seems like a method of finding them might be talking to customers. Just the generic solution that fixes everything. But yeah. How do you do that? I think you definitely want to be talking to people who are currently paying you and really understand who's currently paying you money and why they're paying you money. It would be great if you could figure out who on Circle is not happy with Circle, especially those people who want something bigger. I think we had talked before about if you specialize in people who host virtual events, if you made this sort of like a conference platform, or if you focused on technical audiences, if this was like for technical meetups, that then you could integrate like sponsorships from GitHub or something. You have an advantage that Circle doesn't. You can pick a niche, you can pick the most valuable niche and hunt for the people who are willing to pay $50 a month for this. Find the people who can do expansion revenue. I don't have as good of a formulated plan of exactly how to solve that yet, but does any of that resonate with you, of like who might be people who would value this sort of thing more?
Yeah, so I've already done some of that work. It's probably, I mean, you're right, it's probably worth doing more of that work. But the thing I sort of didn't mention was, it's not just that I see Circle is pretty good and I don't know how it'd be different. It's that MeetingPlace is now more like Meetup, and to make it more like Circle is basically reinventing a huge chunk of what it is. And so it's very similar to doing a whole other product. Like basically all the ways, and so I know why some people don't like Circle, but to fix the things they don't like about that is essentially a whole other product. Like, yes, I could reuse some of the same things, some of the same ideas, but it's a different product than what MeetingPlace is right now, and would be a lot of work. So if I'm going to do all that work anyway, should I focus on that, right? Or because it's the same as what or the same, a similar feel to what I've done at MeetingPlace, or should I do something where I think there's a lot more room for revenue?
Okay. And while you're starting over anyway, you might as well reevaluate like what actually makes the most sense and survey the like. It sounds like the overlap between MeetingPlace and Circle, if you were moving in that direction, you'd effectively be writing a new app. And so this is a good time to stop and take a break and think like, okay, wait, if I'm going to write a new app anyway, let me see if I want to move in a completely different direction. Is that right?
Yeah. And so there's a third option, which I didn't really talk about, which is MeetingPlace. There are a few features I know that people would pay a little bit more for. So what I could do is drop the free plan. That is causing me a lot of pain right now, and I thought I needed it, but I should just drop it. Raise the price a little bit, basically, so it matches Meetup. Meetup is I think it's like $18 a month or something, or $29 if you do the pro plan or whatever. So raise the price a little bit, and then sort of run it on autopilot. MeetingPlace, the way it is right now, if I drop the free users, would basically run on autopilot, pay for itself plus a little bit. Mm-hmm. So fix all those things, and then do something new. So that's something I've been thinking about also.
If I'm in focus mode, I think the direction I would nudge you in is push this forward as much as you can until you're satisfied. You can't do anything else with it. Like, you know definitively this is not a thing that you can push forward. You know exactly why you can't. The next stage would involve raising VC money, because you need VC money to be doing Facebook ads, and the scale of Facebook ads you need to be doing to make this viable just doesn't make sense as a product. Like, the thing I would be hunting for is, this definitely doesn't work, and here's exactly why it doesn't work. And until then, I would try to make it work. I would try to figure out a way to do. That's from the focus lens. Like, trying to apply that in my own life, I hate it because I really enjoy maximizing for like enjoyable work, and that would be hard. That's something I really admire in people like Saba, who are just single-mindedly focused on, like, let me grow this thing as big as possible. Not really caring that, I don't know whether or not he enjoys answering Quora posts, but that's the thing that he identified was like a thing that really meaningfully moved the business forward. So that's where I'm trying to nudge myself, and in this example, trying to nudge you. How do you feel like you could get to that place of feeling confident that that like you knew the next step of what it would take to grow MeetingPlace if you are going in this direction of just competing in the meetup space, and that definitively, like, that's not a step that I want to take, and I can table this project?
Yeah, I mean, I think I could get there. I think I'm trying to think about what that would look like and how that would be different than what I'm already feeling. Because, like, I know, I'll have to think about that. I'll get back to you.
I'm thinking about a similar thing for Fileinbox, so I will also get back to you on that. Okay, so I think that's as far as I can push MeetingPlace. On this new idea, an AI-powered writing buddy. This is so cool and, like, very trendy. And if you made this and posted it on what's the site where you post new things that you make? Not TechCrunch.
Hack Product Hunt.
Product Hunt, yes, thank you. If you post this on Product Hunt, like, it's going to get so many upvotes and people are going to be so excited about it. This is also with GPT-3 opening up. This is going to be a type of product that I think we're going to see flooding the market. I think my main concern with this business is, like, what I'm hearing so far is that you've come up with a cool idea for a cool thing to do with AI. What I'm not hearing is, I talked to these 10 people who run these blogs, and they all said that their main problem is coming up with new ideas for blog posts. And, they love buying Chrome extensions. And so the perfect thing they would pay $100 a month for this because they buy similar writing tools for that price point. So that, I'm not hearing the problem. I'm hearing, like, what the tool is, and that's just, oh man, a mistake that I've made so many times that I'm going to keep making because I love
Yeah.
making stuff and I love coming up with shiny new tool ideas. I think the place where I would nudge you on that is like, do not write any code unless it's just for fun and you're writing code when you would have been watching Netflix. The place that I see pushing this business forward is like, you need to be talking to people, validating in the style of the mom test, validating that there is a problem there. And if not, unearthing some other type of problem. You're an incredibly competent coder. You could make anything. I would imagine in the process of talking to like managers of corporate blogs, you would probably find lower hanging fruit of a problem that you could solve that was more valuable than coming up with new blog ideas.
Yeah, so partly I explained it a little poorly, and partly I pushed on the AI part because we have talked about that. Actually, so it started that way a week ago. And as I was thinking about it, I had the exact same thought process that you just talked about, which is great. Like that, good. What I would position it as actually to customers is actually, I may not even mention AI like on the top, 3/4 of the page or something. It's more like you have a company blog. You don't quite know what to post on it in order to get customers in the door. This will analyze your blog and keywords that are like trending right now, other, like keyword things, and it will sort of tell you where to fill in the gaps. It will tell you like the content you need to write in order to get more people in the door. It's a little like Ahrefs or Ahrefs in that way.
Mm-hmm.
They were sort of an inspiration for some of the things that I think would be interesting. But it's also slightly different. So the key is like you have a company blog, you should be posting something. Here are the things that you need to be posting in order to get more customers in the door. The AI part is secondary, basically.
Okay, that's a much more interesting value proposition. You're doing keyword analysis. You're looking at search volume data. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a thing that I have personally paid for in the past. I think I paid a consultant to do this, and he like went on Ahrefs and made me a manual report of a spreadsheet of like, here are the blog posts that I would make, and I think I paid like $500 for that. So yeah, that intuitively feels like a much more viable business. I think I would still push you to, before writing any code, before building anything, talk to 10 people in this space, like have phone calls with them, get a really clear understanding of who they are and how they phrase the problem and how much they're willing to pay for things. If we're going in this mindset of focusing and like trying to increase revenue, like that's the textbook way to do it.
Yeah, that's good because I need that push because that is not my normal inclination. So yeah,
same. I hate it. I just want to write code. I just want to write code all day. It was so interesting watching Sabbath talk. Like there were so many similarities I saw in, he is very he's a multi-potentialite, like interested in all these different things, and has a hobby in music, and also enjoys coding. And the way he was describing what he was doing before starting this company sounded really similar to like what I've been doing. He's just having fun and trying a bunch of different things and just sort of following his interests. And he made several important pivots in recognizing, okay, I have a product, I know people are paying for it, I'm never going to write code again. I'm going to make this, I'm going to make my job just focusing on growth. I'm going to listen to every podcast I can about growth, every interview that there's ever been with any head of growth at all the big tech companies. I'm just going to ingest this and completely change the work that I'm doing to be what are the things that are making this product bigger. And my gosh, it worked. But like, for me to do that would feel tragic. Like, I don't want to be, writing blog posts and answering query posts all day. Like, I really get a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment out of having an idea for something and then coding a solution to it. And I just love that process. So that needs to remain a part of my life. I don't think I think I could, but I don't think I want to move as quickly as he did. He's grown a team incredibly fast, and he grew revenue incredibly fast. Like, I would be perfectly happy with, hitting 20 or 30 MRR over the next 3 years. That would just be ideal, and that feels like a very sustainable pace. 20K MRR feels more attainable, actually. That feels like something that if I just focused a little bit more, I could hit like in the next year. So I totally get wanting to just do the product, but I think that the way to build this business, I'm talking mostly to myself now. Like, I need to be focused on what are the things actually driving growth. And I don't have to spend all my time doing that. It can just be some of the time. But I know enough about how these businesses work now to know when I'm doing work that is actually moving the business forward and when I'm doing work that's just fun for me to do. And I would like to be making a little bit more sacrifice of this is better for the business, this is better for the long-term goals of I want to make more money, and okay, I've put in my 2 hours for the day on this, and now I can work on a new feature that's just for fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. It brought to mind something that I don't remember who said it, what speaker said it at MicroConf, but it was like, as developers, we're always, especially developers, trying new things. We're always like going on to the next thing. And so he's like, that didn't work, go to the next thing. That didn't work, go to the next thing. That worked, go to the next thing. And he's like, wait, don't go to the next thing. Like, if something works, like, do more of that. Actually, that may have been from a Nathan Barry blog post or something. But yeah, so like, if something's working, do more of that. So Fileinbox is working, whether you think it's boring or not.
Yeah.
And it's, even though it's not a new shiny thing, it's not new and shiny, but it's working. So do more of that.
Yeah. Where I've been frustrated is I feel like I haven't yet found the marketing channel that's working. SEO sort of works, but I feel like my attention span wasn't long enough to have a feedback loop of that, of like, oh, this work I put in actually, that turned into this amount of money. And so yes, of course, I can do that. What ended up happening was like, at the last MicroConf, I got really excited about SEO and dove into Ahrefs and took their course and did a bunch of stuff to improve SEO and like made some tutorials and did some things to rank for keywords that I saw that were important. And then after a month, I didn't really notice any change. And then I was like, I'm going to work on 6 other things instead because that's more exciting. And I am confident that if I had a clear way to see the results from those blog posts, that I would see a tremendous uptick. Because I did notice a few months later, like, MRR started going up for the first time in years. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Wonder why that's happening. And I bet it was happening because of those blog posts. And then I just completely ignored it. And I've just been sitting on this trash heap of customer support requests that, oh my God, I feel so embarrassed that that's still piling up. And if I'm just working more consistently on the things that are actually working, if I can close that loop of, oh, this work that I did was actually successful as a project, I think that's what's going to drive the business forward. So I like the idea of postmortems. That feels like a tractable way to keep that loop closed. Because if I did that for the SEO project, I think I would have had like a follow-up in 6 months, because that's about how much time it takes to get results from SEO. And then with that check in place, I would have been able to see like, oh, I did this work with this hypothesis, and actually the results were 5 times better than I thought they would be. Ooh, let's double down on this. Let's do 5 of these at the same time, and then check back in another 6 months. I'm loving the idea of the postmortem, having just like a form that I fill out. That's really resonating with me. That feels like a solution to a lot of these problems.
Cool, yeah. And I'll push back a little on the same way you did me, which is I think you're not working on Fileinbox sometimes for the same reason I don't work on MeetingPlace, which is I think you are scared of the pile of support requests that you get or that you have. Yeah. And could be wrong about that, but maybe you need to look at support Shepard.
You're absolutely right. I'm scheduled to hire my military wife executive assistant, and the first job for them is going to be helping me with support emails. And I'm just going to be really honest. I'm like, look, this is something I haven't totally emotionally unpacked, but I feel really anxious about it. My first job for you is help me get to the bottom of this inbox, which, as someone coming onto this and being hired, like, that's not going to be emotionally scary. You're not this person is not going to look at this inbox and think like, this is evidence that I'm a piece of shit. They're going to be looking at, okay, this is a new job, and this person seems mostly competent in other ways, but is hiring me to solve a specific problem. They're going to help me get to the bottom of that inbox, and we'll have generated SOPs that then I can give to support Shepard and say, okay, we have a standard procedure for all these things now. I can now be only spending $500 a month to never have to think about this again. And now I've my military wife, personal assistant, moves on to the next thing, and whatever the next product is that I'm feeling anxious about, which hopefully looks like something like marketing. So circling back around, yes, I agree. That has been a big source of anxiety in this business, and if I can solve it, which I feel like I'm making meaningful stuff to be doing, that feels like it would be measurably pushing the business forward.
Yeah, that's great. I'm very excited to see how your VA turns out. Yeah.
Oh, this feels
what
like
else?
I think I should write a postmortem about.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna have a hypothesis for what I think having the VA
Yes.
is gonna look like and what success looks like. Oh, good. Yes. Oh, I'm gonna make a little template. I might spin up a Firebase app or something to keep track of these. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna make a blog post. To focus, Chrstian. Come on, you can do this. Cool.
That's right. Next time I will ask you about it. So yeah, do it because I'm going to ask you.
And I'm going to show you the postmortem. I'm gonna have clearly specified, like, this is the time frame, this is my hypothesis, this is what success would look like, this is what failure would look like. That is there anything else I should be asking? What else would be useful in a postmortem? That feels like all I would need.
Postmortems are they're a pretty typical thing done, especially with engineering teams. So maybe look up a couple blog posts about those are the 4 questions I remember being on them. But yeah, maybe just peruse a couple blog posts to see if anything sticks out.
Cool. I'll do that. There were a handful of other things I wanted to talk to you about, of things that happened at MicroConf Europe. How are we doing on time? Oh, we 8 minutes. I can cover this. I was having a conversation with Saba after his talk, just sort of starstruck of like, oh my God, this dude's making $6 million a year, and his trajectory is just going up. And I told him about Fileinbox, and his eyes lit up, and he was like, oh, I have so many ideas for how I would grow that. And I was like, oh, please. And I took out my phone and like was ready for taking notes. And the first thing he said was focus on file conversions, because he's living in this world of hrefs and looking at search volumes. And he apparently at one point like hired the someone from the team at WeTransfer, so knows a little bit about this space also. And so he was saying that file conversions were a huge source of traffic. So I think what that project might look like is I go on Ahrefs, I look to verify the amount of traffic coming in for, I imagine it's something like convert a doc to a PDF. And then I'm going to make my postmortem thing of like, I think if I build this feature and make this blog post, after 4 months, it'll have this much traffic and will lead to about this many leads. And then I do it, and then I wait 4 months, and then I see what happens. I think I'm feeling a little bit cautious that feels tangential to the business. That feels like it's another product. I could see that being another feature of it, and I could see there being a lot of value in having a landing page that's like, this landing page delivers you the value of converting the document, and also maybe put you into this funnel of, if you need to send or receive documents, I help you do that. And I don't know, maybe I make you make an account also, or it's an opportunity for me to advertise other things that Fileinbox is doing. I don't know that I could charge for just file conversions. What's your hot take on that?
Yeah, I would probably say, so it does sound a little bit like another sort of product or a branch of the product. I would say exactly what you told me, which is try to find 10 people you can talk to that need file conversions and see what they need. See how it's different or similar. Yeah, that's what I would do.
That has never come up in any conversation I've had with the customers that I have. I think it's a cool idea, but I'm going to table it. I think the general idea of focusing on search volume and doubling down on those things makes sense. I remember the last time I dove into that, something that came up was Google searches for sending files is an order or two magnitude higher than the search results for receiving files. And I saw WeTransfer had taken out a bunch of paid ads. They were paying like something ridiculous, like $2 to $4 per click for. So that seems really valuable, and that seems much closer to what the core value is. And I can imagine a much clearer flow of like, it wouldn't be that difficult to make Fileinbox send and receive files. It's just, if you want to send a file, I have one extra step of, oh, hey, someone sent you files. If you recognize this and it's not spam, here's a link to create an account. And if I already have an account associated with this email address, it just goes through the regular workflow. Okay. And I'd like to make a postmortem on that too. Of like, I feel like this shouldn't be a postmortem. It's like a template report for what I expect the feature to be. But I'll keep calling it a postmortem for the purpose of this conversation. Okay, that's clarifying.
Sure. Cool. What else did you have, Tim? You mentioned a few points.
I was struck by how quickly Veed grew. It seemed unusual that it was growing so fast. We're 2 years in and it's making $6 million a year. And yes, I think Saba got a lot of things correct, but it seems like that's more of an industry trend, that like having a web-based video editor is currently an underserved market that has a lot of people who need it, because video is such an effective medium. That's the thing that social media platforms want more of. That's what they're trying to optimize for. That's what they've figured out captures the most human attention. And traditional video editors are really difficult to use. And I think there's a lot of people who are trying to create a video product that don't know anything about video editing, that don't have time to become a professional video editor, and certainly don't want to have to learn Final Cut Pro. That feels like clips.marketing, I'm just getting a lot of positive signals from. The only two people I've had conversations with where I asked them for money at the end of it immediately agreed to pay me $100 a month for it.
You have a new customer? A second customer?
Did I not tell you about that? Yeah. Who signed up for 2 licenses. I'm still not actually charging them money, but he was like, it's like, send me the page where I can pay you money. I don't want to give you my credit card over the phone, but he's going to sign up for himself and for his agency that he works for. So I sort of have the promise of 3 paying customers. It's been crazy bumping around Europe, so I haven't been able to like just do the Stripe integration to charge. But theoretically, as soon as I do that, I am at $300 MRR on that product. This also feels like it could be a distraction. I don't want to suffer from shiny object syndrome, but this is something that I'm much more excited about than Fileinbox. I think the answer is I want to be doing both and nothing else. I think I want to do maybe every other day I'm focused on a different project, and on Fileinbox I'm focused mostly on marketing, and on clips.marketing I'm focused on polishing a handful of things left in the product, and then talking to customers, getting everyone from the pre-sale email lists onboarded one at a time. But that seeing how quickly V grew just reinforced for me, like, ooh, there's really something here in this market. This feels like a valuable place to be investing time. I don't really have a question in there or need a hot take, but an update on how I'm feeling about clips.marketing.
Yeah. If you got 2 or 2.5, 3, whatever, people to pay you $100 a month, like sort of casually, it sounds like, do more of that. That is something that's working. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, good. I will. What else? Getting Fileinbox in app stores is a thing that came up a few times at MicroConf. That feels like another project to make a postmortem template of. I think the hypothesis there would be, for a relatively small investment of time, I could open myself up to a much higher source of traffic through the App Store, and then also I can make a new page that's like, oh, you're trying to receive files on your WordPress site? Here's exactly how to do that. Here's a link to the store in the App Store for WordPress. It's a one-click install. I think when I next talk to you, I want to give you a menu of these postmortem things, these experiments I think I want to call them experiments. I'm going to call them experiments. I want to give you a menu of experiments that's like, here are 3 things I think I could do for Fileinbox. Here's my hypothesis. Here's the work that it would be. Here's what success would look like. Here's what failure would look like. You pick which one I do for the next week, and then I'll report back as to what the results were when the thing pops. So one of those is going to be getting Fileinbox in app stores. One of those is going to be sending and receiving files. And I'll think of a third one before we talk next.
Okay. Sounds great. Yeah,
Cool.
I'll do that.
One last thing that just felt good, felt like a win. I gave an attendee talk at MicroConf. They went so well. I was really nervous about it for the days leading up to it, and especially the morning of. And I talked about why video is important and why I think everyone should be making more video, and how it's easier than you think it is, and how it's a higher ROI than you might think it is. And people came up to me afterwards and were like, "Oh, that was a great talk. Like, you convinced me. I'm going to make more video." And I have this question about this thing, or
Nice.
You could have included this information. And yeah, it felt really good. Felt like a win in the community. I felt like I genuinely like helped other people push their businesses forward, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, sounds awesome.
Cool, Chris. That's all I got.
That's all I got to.
Then I will see you next week. Do widzenia.
Bye.